The Kansas-Nebraska Act might have been the most important event that led to the Civil War, which was the cause of approximately 625,000 deaths. More Americans died in this war than in World War I, World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War combined. What is the Kansas-Nebraska Act, you ask? The Kansas-Nebraska Act was an 1854 bill that promoted popular sovereignty. It first broke the larger territories of Nebraska into two smaller territories, Kansas and Nebraska. It also stated that the people in the Kansas and Nebraska territory had the opportunity to decide for themselves whether they were a free or slave state. This was the first time that the expansion of slavery would be determined based on a vote. This act went against the Missouri Compromise of 1820 that banned slavery north of latitude 3630. The Nebraska Act was proposed by Senator Stephen A. Douglas of Illinois. Douglas's original intention was to prepare conditions for building a transcontinental railroad through the Midwest to benefit Illinois. Douglas's bill appealed to the South pro-slavery group because it repelled the Missouri Compromise line, and the South could now have bigger farms with more slaves in the new territories. It, however, did not appeal to the North because the new bill went against the Missouri Compromise, which had kept the nation from falling apart for the past 34 years. And since the Missouri Compromise guaranteed no slavery in the North was outraged to hear that slavery is now being allowed in the North. Also, the North felt that if the Compromise of 1820 was overthrown, then the Compromise of 1850 will be overthrown as well. President Franklin Pierce gave his support to Douglas and was later attacked by articles in northern newspapers. A specific article was called Appeal of the Independent Democrats by Salmon P. Chase and Charles Sumner. The result of the act was devastating. It became known as Bleeding Kansas, which worsened the relationship of the North and South. After the act was passed, pro-slavery and anti-slavery supporters hurried to settle into Kansas to hopefully affect the outcome of the first election held there after the law was passed. Pro-slavery carried the election but was then charged with fraud by anti-slavery, and the results weren't approved by them. Rival governments were made in Kansas by late 1855, one for the pro-slavery and one for the anti-slavery. The pro- and anti-slavery conflict led to great violence that helped start the American Civil War from 1861 to 1865, hence the name Bleeding Kansas. The two groups fought for control, and John Brown led anti-slavery fighters into Kansas before his famous raid on Harper's Ferry. John W. Geary was appointed territorial governor and managed to detain the border war with the help from federal troops. Yet, Kansas still continued to fight. An example of this was the 1858 Marius de Signis massacre of 5 Free State men. Violence then continued on a smaller scale into 1861. Douglas's bill also had enormous political effects, which included the split of two major political parties and at the same time created another one. The bill split the Whig Party. The Northern Whig Party went against the bill, and the Southern Whig Party voted for it. Most of the Southern Whigs soon were put into the Democratic Party, while Northern Whigs reconstructed themselves with another non-slavery interest to create the Republican Party. The party of Abraham Lincoln. By the time Kansas was admitted into statehood, Southern states had begun to secede from the nation. The Independent Democrats and Northern Whigs became a part of the Republican Party, leaving Southern Whigs without party links and making an issue of splitting the Democrats even more. In the end, Douglas's bill was passed but failed its intentions. The railroad ended up being built along a route that Douglas didn't originally desire. The Kansas-Nebraska Act and Bleeding Kansas by Kelii, Kayla, Deziree, Rebecca, Kamaile, and Taryn.